I have started my very first block of the Afghan, and it is done in a single crochet stitch, which is the easiest of the crochet stitches. So in this Afghan, the stitches will start with the easiest and it gradually builds up to more advanced stitches. So it's a great learning tool. So here in the book, you can see the picture of the very first block done in single crochet. And if I flip a couple pages over, here are the written instructions for it. So to begin, I'm actually going to use a little bit larger of a size hook. I'm using a 5.5 millimeter to make the very beginning chain. And the reason for this is because I want to be able to work into the back loops of this chain, and it makes it a little bit easier to get into those back loops, and it also, using a larger size hook causes there to not be any puckering on the very edge of your beginning chain, and I think that that looks pretty squared up, so I don't see any puckering. Now, when you work into the back loops, your beginning chain will have a real nice chain edge, and it will match the ending of your crochet, which has also got a real nice chain edge. And the advantage of this in this particular Afghan is that we're going to come back later and we're going to work another yarn color all the way around the bottom, the top, and both sides of the blocks to have like an accent color. So to get started, I'm using my larger hook, and we're going to make a slip knot. And if you don't know how to do that, you just wrap your yarn around your fingers, let it come over the back of your fingers, bring it back up, and it just kind of crisscrosses. I just kind of like to hang on to that crisscross and let the yarn drop to the back. Put your hook in and let go and just pull on your yarn and snug it up to your crochet hook. Okay, to make our beginning chain, you can see your little slip knot right there. To make our beginning chain, we are going to make 26 chains. So you've got the yarn behind your hook, and you want to bring the yarn to the front and just pull that loop on the hook right through. There's your beginning chain. You can see your slip knot right there, and there's your first chain. So move your fingers up and hang on to the chain that you just made. Your yarn's in the back. Bring it toward the front, and you'll kind of have to twist your hook to get it through. And you just pull that right through. And there is your second chain. So you've got your first beginning chain, your second beginning chain. Move your fingers up. Yarn is in the back. Move the yarn to the front. Flip your hook and pull that yarn right through the loop that was on your hook. Make sure each time that you move your fingers upwards, and make sure that you're moving this loop onto this particular part of your hook, which is called the shaft of your hook, because this gives your hook that 5.5 millimeter circumference. Okay, so you're just going to keep doing this for 26 stitches. Alright, so I'm going to drop this, and I've made another little sample over here. Okay, here we go. I've got my 26 stitches, and you always want to make sure that you count those stitches, because boy, let me tell you, there's nothing worse than making a project and realizing at the end of it that you're short. So just take the time and count those stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and there's the slip knot. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to now start working into the back loops of those beginning chains. They look like little bumps. So the front of the chain will look like little V's. The back of the chain will have little bumps. So take out your 5.5 millimeter hook and go to the recommended 5 millimeter hook and just insert that right in. Make sure that you didn't twist your stitch in the process. Your yarn, your working yarn, which will move back and forth, it will be to the front of your hook. Okay, snug that up. So in single crochet, there's always a turning chain. So this block will actually have 25 stitches, but that 26th stitch that we made is actually the turning chain. So what the turning chain does is it brings the work upwards so that your work is at the correct height. So we're going to flip our work over, and we're not going to work into that first chain. Now this is a loop on your hook. This is the very first chain right there. There's your second chain. We're going to skip that first chain because that's our turning chain. Turn your work around. You can see that very first bump, which is the first beginning chain. We're going to skip that. We're going to go to the second bump right there, and we're going to insert our hook, yarn over from the back to the front, and pull up that loop. Make sure you're getting all those loops to the shaft of the hook. Yarn over from the back to the front and pull through 2 loops. And that's your very first single crochet stitch that's made. Okay, let's go to our second bump, which is right there. Put your hook under there, yarn over from the back to the front, pull up a loop, yarn over from the back to the front, and pull through 2 loops. And you're just going to keep doing this, finding the next bump and working your stitch. Yarn over from the back to the front, pull up a loop, yarn over from the back to the front, and pull through 2 loops. Okay, let's take a look at our stitches. So I've made 4 stitches so far, 4, 3, 2, and 1. You can see they look like little V's. And from the front, you can count 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are really tight. The stitches are really tight because the author of the book actually has us working in a hook size that's just a little bit smaller than what's recommended for the actual yarn that we're using. So it just gives us a really tight stitch, and the fabric is real, like a real firm, has a real firm hand to it. Okay, so you're just going to keep working that all the way across. I want to show you what your stitches look like. So we're working from the right to the left with our right hand. Now if you're left-handed, you'll actually be working from the left to the right. But let's take a look at that single crochet stitch. So in the front, it looks like 2 little bars here, and they're kind of slanting over toward the left direction, and they'll always be slanting to the direction that you're working toward. And if we take a look on the back, it looks completely different back there. It kind of has this bump right here. There's the top of the stitch. In the front, you can also see the top of the stitch. So here's the two bars in the front, and there's the very top of the V. It's very similar to knitting. If you're a knitter at all, your knit stitches will look more like loops, and your purl stitches will have that bump, that bumpy look to it. Okay, so you're just going to keep working across, going into the next bump, yarning over and pulling up a loop, yarning over and pulling through 2 loops. All right, I'm going to go to my next sample so that you don't have to watch me crochet all 26 of those. So I'm just going to take out my loop and grab my next sample. Okay, we're to the end. We only have 3 more stitches to do. You can see the bumps. There's 3, 2, and 1. So put it under, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Your second to the last stitch, put it under the bump, yarn over from the back to the front, and pull up a loop and yarn over from the back to the front and pull through 2 loops. And here's my very last bump. This one tends to look a little weird because you've got that slip knot. So there's your slip knot, there's your beginning chain, and there's the back bump of the chain. So just insert your hook, yarn over from the back to the front and pull up a loop, yarn over from the back to the front and pull through 2 loops. Okay, we are at the very end here. So what we're going to do is we are going to turn our work. So just like the page of a book, just turn your work. Now we're going to make, your yarn will be in the back, and we're going to make 1 chain by yarning over and pulling through the loop. And you can see the 1 chain, and that again is just to bring our work up to the correct height. So we're going to skip that turning chain and go right into the very first stitch. So put your hook right under both of those top loops. They look like V's. Just make sure you get under both of those. And then you'll yarn over from the back to the front and pull up a loop, yarn over from the back to the front and pull through both loops. And that is your very first single crochet. So there is the top of the single crochet. That's your turning chain. And you can see the front of your single crochet. See how those bars are going toward the left direction? And that's the very top of the V right there. The very top of the V, that side. And then if you go to the back, there's that distinctive bump right there, and that's the other side of the top of the V. So that's what your stitch looks like. And so you're just going to keep crocheting all the way across. You can see where your next stitch is right there. Make sure you flip your work and make sure you're getting under both of those 2 top threads from your single crochet, and work it just like the other stitch. Insert your hook under the 2 top parts of the V, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. You're going to repeat this all the way across your work. Okay, and you're just going to do that all the way across. At the very end, you can see your very last V right here. Okay, and something that's a really good idea is that you count your stitches when you get done with a row. When we're new to crocheting, a lot of times we get to the end and we start getting confused. That's actually the last stitch right there, but this looks like another V on the end, and it is because it's your turning chain. So that's the turning chain. You don't want to work into that. So that very distinctive V on the top is what you want to work into, and when it starts looking a little wonky, that's your turning chain right there. So you're just going to repeat that row 2. You're going to repeat row 2 over and over again until your work actually hits 7 inches tall. So your width of your work should be 7 inches wide, and the height of your work going upwards will be 7 inches tall when held up to a ruler. And that is how you make the very first beginning block of this Afghan.